So some of you might remember that before my break I started a new series.
I'm redesigning the famous Monster High dolls in my style, but instead of just repainting the vinyl dolls, I make them as 16-inch 3D printed ball jointed dolls.
But I guess you saw the thumbnail, so we all know why you're here, and yes, I'm making DRACULAURA today. Let me show you the plan.
I've always imagined DRACULAURA in kind of a punk Lolita Harajuku inspired outfit. That's why she's gonna get a beautiful black-pink tartan dress with a bunch of lace, ruffles, chains, ruffles, ribbons, lace, ribbons, studs, chains, and so on. Underneath she's gonna wear some black bloomers topped with some over-knee stockings. For shoes I'm gonna make her some custom black Mary Janes with a bunch of accessories. And she's also gonna get a cute coffin-shaped backpack with wings. And to complete the look she's gonna get her signature black-pink hairstyle topped with ribbons and a studded headband, and she's also gonna get some bracelets.
Oof, that's a lot to do, so how about we mix some resin so we can start printing the doll? So in order to mix DRACULAURA's skin tone, I first pour in some white resin into a measuring cup and then add some resin ink in the color beetroot to it. To make the color a little warmer, I decided to also add some red resin to it and mix it thoroughly. Okay, so this looks really dark, purplish almost, but if I cure that, I made a little test. Wow! It is very close. I think we can work with that, and then worst case, airbrush or blush. So let's print her!
Blue Pixie not only custom sculpted a beautiful face for DRACULAURA, but she also adjusted her body to be a bit smaller and thicker in homage to the beautiful Generation 3 DRACULAURA. And on top of that, I'm also gonna print her at just 93% of the original size of Claudine, so she should be a good inch smaller than Claudine in the end.
With the vials all set up and the resin mixed, I am pouring in the forbidden milkshake into the resin printer, fire it up and hope for the best for a successful print. Let's make a small transition to a couple hours later. The print is almost done here and it looks quite good so far. Removing the build plate reveals an almost completely successful print. Yay! So except for the face in the middle, everything printed. Yay! Oopsie. After gracefully scraping off the prints and cleaning them, they now just need to be cooked in my UV curing station. I can't help myself but always feel it looks like I'm microwaving the pieces. A couple of print beds and curing actions later, I have a bowl full of doll pieces. The prints turned out really pretty and I love her little face. You can see that her torso is thicker too, as well as her legs. So sadly the resin turned out to be a lot lighter and a lot grayer than DRACULAURA's actual skin tone, which means I'm going to mix this and will, just like Claudine, airbrush the whole doll in order to have the most accurate skin tone. So let's change to the airbrush setup. I mixed the perfect color. As I said, I ended up needing to airbrush, but if you guys know me, the perfectionist in me wouldn't have let that slip. That's pretty good. Alright, I'm actually done. I'm glad I decided to airbrush the pieces though, because look at these beautifully light pink doll parts. Now the doll is ready for assembly. It seems I also airbrushed my fingers as well, so I apologize for my pink fingers here. First I make sure to glue all the magnets into ankle and wrist joints, feet, hands, and also into the head, back and faceplate. Then I take the absolutely perfect and not self-made S-hooks and fold it in elastic with length of a large tear-sized avocado and start stringing the arms by threading the elastic through the armholes with the help of some wires and thread the arm parts on like beads. Secure them with skewer sticks at the end and remove the wire before threading on the S-hooks and wrist joints and removing the skewers. I do that to both sides and end up with nicely strung arms. One magnet was on the loose, but that's fixable. I have to glue that back in. To string the body, I thread an elastic with the length of 2 big bananas through head, back, upper, middle and lower torso. Here I have to do a banana split on the elastic and thread it through both leg holes to string both legs like I did with the arms. I hook the ankle joints on with more S-hooks and attach the magnetic feet. Now I just need to click on the face and she's all strung. Here she is all set up on a doll stand. I love her so much, and in the end you will see that indeed she is smaller than Claudine. But I would like to keep that a surprise for you, so you have to wait until the end of the video to see it. I love that she has a little belly and bigger hips. Even her feet are bigger to give her a cohesive look. Thank you so much Blue for doing such a marvelous sculpting job again. How about we start with her wig today? Okay, so I already made a wig cap and some markings on it, and now we can make the wig. I prepared these pink and black yarn wefts for her wig and start the making process by hot gluing the wefts on the wig cap, starting on the back of the head. I glue them alternately, one black, one pink, one black, one pink, and so on. Now I just fill up the head until this line basically. Let's make a transition. Whee! Whee! That looks good so far. Now let's make her bangs. I want to give her split hairstyle bangs, so I first glue on one half, in this case the pink half, brush it out in between and add more wefts if necessary, and then also glue on the other half in black. And then I carefully chop off the majority of the length to already shorten the bangs, and then step by step, tiny cut by tiny cut, shorten them and try to cut them into a perfect line. When I was happy with the bangs, I then fill up the upper part of her head with wefts that I'm going to be folding around in order to give her two pigtails. I glue them along the center part, bangs and back of the head so I can tie them together. Now I have to put all of these into the second pigtail like I did on this side, basically. Okay, so the wig looks really good so far, but I think I wanna make her pigtails a little bit thicker. Let me show you. I really like it, but I think these look a little bit like thin. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some wefts that I still have in pink and in black, and we'll add them around here. We'll just glue them around and then add like a little ribbon or so in the end, and I think then it's gonna look really nice. And maybe I'll also do some curls. I'll see. I'll decide that when I'm done. Okay. Spoiler alert, I did not make curls in the end. To glue the thickening wefts around the pigtails, I use some regular glue because the hot glue melts the hair elastics, and carefully add some more wefts to the pigtail until they have the thickness that I like. Ah, this looks so good. Before, after. Yes! Okay, let's do the other side, and yeah. Then we're almost done. Let's make her accessories before I show you the whole wig. I printed this headband and some mini cone studs with my 3D printer, and first have to chromify the studs. For that I apply some UV nail polish to them and cure it under my UV lamp for 2 minutes. When they were cured, I can then use my magical chrome nail art powder and rub it onto the stud, making it shiny silver. I can then take the headband that I also glossed with UV polish and carefully attach the studs with some super glue to the headband. When it was done, it looked like this, and I am living for this look already. I also made these tiny pleather ribbons for DRACULAURA and will use these pleather strips as hair ties. Here I already attached the pleather strip to her pigtail and just glue the ribbon onto it in the front. Then I'm doing the same on the other side, wrapping around the pleather strip and attaching the little ribbon afterwards. And last but not least, I put the headband on, and I think the wig is done. Here's the finished wig. I am absolutely living for this hairstyle, and my 14-year-old self is screaming in happiness right now. Not gonna lie, I low-key wish I had Draculaura's hair color. She looks absolutely gorgeous already, so I decided why not paint her face now. After spraying Draculaura's face with Mr. Super Clear, I start the face up by adding some soft pink blushing to her cheeks first. Due to airbrushing her face before, the pigment stuck quite intense, but luckily I could blend out everything just fine. I also add some forehead and chin blushing, but then realized something. Oh my god, you can tell I haven't done a face up in a while. I almost forgot the pearly shimmers. How could I? How could I? No! After almost committing a Moonlight Jewel crime by not adding shimmers to her face first, I now generously apply them all over her face and then go in with a smaller brush to give her lips a soft, vibrant pink blushing. Time to sketch out her eyeliner. For Draculaura's face-up design, I thought it would just be fitting to give her a bat wing-shaped eyeliner. It was a bit tricky to figure out how exactly to draw it, but I think I made it work by adding the little wing to the top part of the corner of the eyeliner. But the real challenge will be to mirror it to the other side. Now to copy that on the other side. Oh my god. Let's do some editing magic here. Why can't it be fast like this in real life? Sketched lines are done, time to fill them in with black acrylic paint. Even with small brushes like the ones I'm using, this was not easy because I tried to get crisp lines and those are just hard to paint in general. So I take my time and really go slow in order to give her a perfect eyeliner. Eventually, an eternity later, I made it work on both sides and can now add some pink eyeliner as well. In contrast to the edgy Batwing, I wanted to give her a sweet pink eyeliner line with a little heart. I also sketched that out with a pencil first and then fill it in with some pink acrylic paint. Awesome! With all the eyeliner shapes done, I can take my small blush brush and start mapping out the eyebrows for her. I use different shades of brown and shape them carefully with a brush and a kneaded eraser if necessary. After sketching out both eyebrows, I already added some lashes to one side of her face, so let me show you how I did that on the other eye. I used dark brown gouache paint and a super thin detail brush and carefully add all the tiny lash lines along her lower waterline. There is no secret, but just a lot of practice to this step, but now lashes are one of my favorite parts of the face up. To blend lashes in more nicely, I always like to use some dark brown and black pastel chalk dust and apply it with a small brush. Then, using the same brown gouache paint I used for the lashes, I fill in the eyebrows and also give them some single hairs. With some white paint, I also paint the little fangs on Draculaura's lips white. And then comes my favorite part, adding micro glitter to her cheeks to make her glow like a galaxy. I'm so in love with this iridescent glitter. With all the glitter sealed in place and also her little heart on the cheek added that I almost forgot, she looks gorgeous and I can now gloss her lips and waterline. I love to use Liquitex high gloss varnish, but I usually use at least 2 to 3 layers on top of each other, letting each layer dry in between for an absolute high gloss finish. Last but not least, she needs some lashes. To glue them, I use white PVA glue and apply it to her upper lid before carefully adding the lash and pressing it on with a toothpick. While her lashes are drying, let's make her eyes. I mix some white resin ink into my UV resin and fill it into the smallest eye mold I have. I cure them for about 3 to 4 minutes and can then take them out of the silicone mold and end up with 2 pretty eye bases. To paint her eyes, I first add a layer of white acrylic paint to the iris, so that any added color won't be shining into the sclera because of the slight translucency of the eye bases. Which makes me think of, what eye color exactly does Draculaura have? Draculaura has a face, eye color, light purple and skin tone pink, unique to her. She has black hair with highlights and pigtails, which is unique to her and cannot be bought? What does that mean? Okay, so with these information obtained, we can paint her iris in a light lilac tone. I then just let them dry and can then add some tiny black rhinestones for her pupils with a drop of resin. After curing, I can add some more resin and decided to add a tiny star and a small rhinestone for highlights into her eyes. I cured it again and then add the final resin dome to the eyes, but also add a small amount of purple glitter to it for some pizzazz. I cure them one final time and end up with 2 really pretty lilac eyes. Let's put them into the face. Here's the finished face with the lashes, and here are the eyes. And bam! Holy moly, even without the hair and everything, she already looks so much like Draculaura. Wow! I also decided to add some earrings to her ears, just for fun. Oh, and I also painted and glossed her fingernails while I had the black acrylic paint on my palette. This fits her so much. Let's make her dress next. That's gonna be a doozy of a process. So in order to be able to make a tartan dress in doll size, I actually ran into a problem.
Pretty much all tartan fabrics that you can buy out there are way too big for doll-sized clothing. So I put it upon myself to design a black-pink tartan fabric pattern, scaled it down to doll size, and got it printed onto cotton fabric at a fabric printing company.
When the fabric finally arrived, I was absolutely blown away. The color, the quality, everything about it is just perfect. I'm almost scared to cut the pieces out of it. Let's just do it real quick. To make the top of Draculaura's dress, I will need these bodice pieces. First, I'm going to be sewing the darts of the front piece like this, good sides in. Then I'm taking this small lace that I found in my stash and will glue it on top of the front piece using my OOAK glue diagonally like this and fold a little corner in the middle to be able to glue it down diagonally the same way on the other side. After successfully doing so, I can then slap on the back pieces with magic finished sides in. For some more details, I add some satin ribbon strips to the top like this by gluing them in place. And then I can finally clean up the upper seam. Oh my god. After sneezing my inner demons away, I carefully glue the upper seam around with my beloved OOAK glue. When I was done, it looked like this, so I can now take the small leather strip and will glue it along the upper front part of the top. I wrap the ends towards the inside of the top for a clean finish and end up with something like this. The dress will have an attached choker, so I'm going to add a small satin ribbon strip to the top and start with the one in the middle and then add one more to the left and one on the right side. While the strips were drying, I prepped this little choker by gluing around the upper and bottom seam allowances and will add a lace to the bottom first by gluing it onto the choker from the back side. I snip off the excess and burn any edges of the synthetic lace with a lighter. With the choker done, I will now glue it onto the strips I attached to the top earlier. First the middle strip, and then I glue the two strips in a cross and then attach them to the choker as well. I snip off the excess and have a really cool top with an attached choker, so we can now get to making her skirt. Okay, so in order to make the skirt, we first need to prepare some ruffles that will go onto the skirt like this. So yeah, ruffles it is. These always look so pretty, but they're hella annoying to make. In this case, I first glue around all the bottom seam allowances. I will need 8 ruffles in total, 4 for each skirt side, and an additional super long one later. And then I decided to add some lace to the pink tartan ruffles by pinning and sewing them on like this. With that, the 4 ruffles were prepped. Okay, now I have to put in gathering threads and ruffle everything. Okay, so I have a gathering thread in all of them now. And now we have to put them on this skirt piece. So let's gather the first one. Gathering ruffles and pinning them in place plus sewing them on neatly feels like 3 different jobs at once, and it is really a bit of a pain. But hey, everything for a perfect dress, right? What works best for me is pinning the ends in place and then distributing the ruffles evenly. When the ruffle was pinned in place, it looks like this, and now I just need to stitch it down. Then I pin and sew the first tartan ruffle in place and decided to add a little lace on top of it, just because it looks cute. Here I already pinned the next ruffle and now have to also sew it in place, add a lace, and add the final pink ruffle on top. I luckily already made the other side of the skirt already, and here is the middle piece. Okay, now we have to make a print on this. That's what happens when you talk to your dad while working. I forgot to film cutting and weeding this out, but yeah, we'll just put this on. Here is me ironing them onto the fabric with the heating press of my dad's company. It looks super nice, and now I can add the middle piece to the skirt by sewing it to the ruffled pieces, finished sides in. This is how the full skirt looks like, and now I have the honor of sewing a super long ruffle onto the bottom of it. It was about 1 yard long and took ages to gather. Okay, so I gathered this now, and it took me like 20 minutes to just pin this, because it was really difficult. So now I have to sew this all on, and then I can flip it down, and then it hopefully will look good. Let's see! Yay! It worked! It looks so good! With the ruffle attached and a gathering thread in the skirt, I gather it one more time for this dress to make it fit the waistline of the dress, so I can pin it in place, finished sides in. It's all pinned now, and I'm going to sew it on now. Whee! This is how the dress looked with the top and bottom sewn together, and I also closed the back seam already, so that we can now start to bedazzle it into oblivion.
Bedazzle, 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 bedazzle.
I prepared this little pleather ribbon and first glue it to the center of the top part of the dress. Next, I will add some tiny studs and first apply some glue to the parts I want them to be, and then carefully add them with a little toothpick. When I was done with the studs bedazzling action, it looked like this. Next, I made this double chain with 2 rings to each end, so I can sew it to the dress onto the left and right side. I glossed this heart-shaped bead black and added to the top of the dress as well. And then I prepped these studded pleather strips, which I will be now adding to the dress right next to the chain. I made this little ribbon off cam and use it to cover up the chain and pleather strip beginning on the left side, and then use this little rose to do the same on the other side of the dress. To finish off the dress, I add a small pink heart to the ribbon on the top and to the choker as well. You think we're done? Nope! I now made some tiny buckles with my X-Tool M1 and some silver vinyl covered PVC, and will use these buckles for the straps of the dress. I thread some pleather straps through the buckles and then carefully glue them to the dress. The dress has some extra puffy sleeves that I make from a tartan strip and first clean up the bottom seam of it. Then I add a lace to it and fold it around the upper seam allowance like this, leaving enough space for an elastic thread and hem it. Then I take the elastic thread and thread it through the little channel that I made. For the bottom elastic, I'm going to be using a wider elastic that I will be sewing onto the sleeves like this. With both elastics in place, I then gather the upper elastic to around 5 cm or 2 inches and knot the two ends together to secure it. Then I just sew the back seam of the sleeves and they're done. And with some closures added, the whole dress is finally done. This might be one of the most elaborate Lolita dresses I've made so far, and I love it so much. Not gonna lie, I wish I had this dress for myself. It's just so cool and cute at the same time. The little sleeves are so cute as well. Let's give DRACULAURA some bloomers to wear underneath the dress. To make them, I cut 4 leg pieces from black fabric and first sew them together along the side seams, finished sides in. In retrospect, I don't know why I didn't cut them on fold. Well, sometimes we can't see the wood for the trees. RIP. After sewing together the side seams, I also ironed the bottom seams of the legs so I can add a lace to the bottom of the bloomers like this. With the lace and some markings added on the inside of the bloomers, I will now sew on some more elastics just the same way as I did on the sleeves. And then it is time to sew together both leg pieces along the front seam, finished sides in. I also folded around the top seam allowance to create a little channel for an elastic and will insert that with a big dull needle. Then I pin it together in the back and hem the back seam, finished sides in as well. And now it is just the crotch seam missing that I sew finished sides in from one leg all the way to the other. With this last step we have some super cute bloomers and I really like them. They're really easy to make and will give the dress some more volume later on as well. I also want to make DRACULAURA some stockings and just simply use some actual thin tights to make them. I pin the pattern piece in place and cut it out, leaving some seam allowance. I do that a second time and then first glue around the top seam allowance of the stocking with some OOAK glue. Afterwards, I can then add some lace on top of the seam allowance and will stitch it on with a zigzag stitch so it stays elastic. And then I just have to fold the back seam together and hem it in place, finished sides in. Done 2 times, we end up with super cute over-knee stockings. It's so cool you can use actual tights for this, even though it's a little hard to sew, but with some paper underneath the fabric it usually works fine. Let's make DRACULAURA a coffin-shaped backpack too. Okay, I set up to cut the bag from foam, so let's do that. While setting up my laser cutter, my dogs were just too cute.
Oh, you too.
Figuring out how to cut foam with my M1 was such a nice thing, because the pieces will always be completely accurate, which is amazing when you need to work very neat. After cutting the foam, I also cut some bat wings from 2 different black self-adhesive vinyls. I then satisfyingly weed them out before taking a clear overhead projector vinyl and apply the matte black wings first. I rub them on with a squeegee and peel off the transfer vinyl. And then I add the shiny finger structure on top. Yes, the wing bones of bats are called fingers. Super cool and a bit spooky to imagine.
Oh, this looks so nice. Oh. I have to do the same on the back side. Oh, nice.
After applying the vinyls to both sides, so it will look good from front and back, I then carefully cut them out with small scissors and try to be as accurate as I can. Then I'm taking the foam pieces and some black pleather and will now cut out the pattern pieces from pleather, but with a good amount of seam allowance. I will be using some contact cement to bond the pleather and foam together. I apply it to both parts and let it sit for a moment before pressing them on together tightly. Why does this glue always look like snot? Ugh. After gluing the middle, I also glue around all the seam allowances towards the inside of the piece. Then I'm taking the wings that I prepped before and also apply them to the piece like this with contact glue. For the inner lining, I applied some thick interfacing to some pink cotton fabric and cut out the shape for the coffin first. And then I slap it on to the wing pleather piece like this to cover up any ugly spots. I do the same with the side strip of the bag, first covered it with pleather and then with a fabric strip. In the end, I trim off any excess with scissors. Time to apply the strip to the back of the backpack. This was quite tricky to do. I needed a bunch of patience and glue, but I made it work in the end and it looks super cute. I prepped the lid of the backpack the same way as I did with the back, but will apply a lace around it now. I glue it in place until I have something like this. Then I apply a little pleather strip to it like this, that will be the closure flap later. First, let's attach the lid though. I folded a black satin ribbon strip in half and ironed it and first glue it to the lid like this. Then I add the lining piece to the lid as well with contact glue, and then I apply glue to the other part of the satin strip and carefully glue that part onto the inside of the backpack. And then I attach a teeny tiny magnet for the closure to the side of the bag and the pocket flap. The straps for carrying the backpack are just some pleather strips glued to the back of the backpack like this. We're almost done, just some decorations are missing. I prepped this pink ribbon from some pink pleather, cleaned up the edges and already folded it together. Now I just need to pull a thread through the middle of the ribbon, wrap it around a couple times, secure it in place and then use a small pleather strip to cover it up by gluing it around. I also added an additional pleather strip to the top of the backpack like this and will now glue the pink ribbon onto it here. And last but not least, let's also add some tiny studs to the backpack with some glue and a toothpick. This backpack is so cute and I think it looks so much like it belongs to DRACULAURA. I love the little pink ribbon and the little bat wings so much. Now it's just DRACULAURA's shoes missing, wow! I printed the bases for them in black resin and will first prep some lacy PU leather strips like this. With some snotty booger glue added to the backside of them and to the shoes, I can then glue them in place like this. I prepped some tiny wings the same way as I did with the big ones and glue them in the middle of the top of the lacy strips. Then I take these silver hearts and glue them to the middle of the wings. For the middle strap on her shoes, I add a pleather strip with a loop on top to the heel like this. Then I prepare some more buckled straps with some self-made buckles and thread them through the loop on top of the heel. And of course, tiny studs can't be missing either on the shoe. Now I just need to make a little chain by threading it through a little ring and then threading the ring through the lace on the shoe. The other end I attach on the top strap. I also made a little ring here so that now we can on top just glue one of these hearts. So much glue! Ew! Winning the fight over the glue, I then attached the little heart to the ring. Shoes are done as well and I really love them. They're simple but so detailed when you look closely and I really love that effect. And actually, with this last piece, the whole doll is done. Here you can see me assembling her for the very first time, and I must admit this first time assembling moment is always magical. Seeing the doll that you worked on for so long for the very first time all together. And well, now you guys will see her for the first time as well. You have to see this. May I present to you DRACULAURA. here's my Draculaura redesign. I hope you love her as much as I do, and I cannot wait to make the next Monster High redesign. Thanks again to all of my patrons as well for making this video possible. You guys are the very best. Thank you so much. And thank you guys so much for watching as well, and see you soon in the next video.